Zimbabwe's Robert Mugabe era comes to an end. Good evening. This is T West and welcome to Afro Synergy. Well, after at least 37 years of ruling Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe is now out of power. This is the result of a military coup. So far, it appears no lives have been lost. It seems to have been bloodless so far. And Robert Mugabe and his wife are under house arrest right now. The military men, many of these men, most of them, of course, much younger or are younger than Robert Mugabe, but the military men were the men who helped Mugabe come to power when they were fighting against, under Rhodesia, when they were fighting against the pale-skinned people at that time. And Robert Mugabe, for all these years, has been a pretty damn good leader. I often refer to him as the old lion of Africa. However, Robert Mugabe is well into his 90s as far as age. And with age comes a diminishing in leadership in certain areas. Because as you age, you diminish in certain areas. Then he was also married to the wife that he's married to is considerably younger than he is. I believe she's in her 50s. And in addition, there's a group there, a political group that she's a big part of called the G40s. And these are younger men and women. They're in Zimbabwe. And that group has clashed politically with many of the old veterans of the military. And then also, somewhat recently, Mugabe got rid of his vice president, and the vice president left Zimbabwe, taking his family with him, claiming that he feared for his life in Zimbabwe. So, the military has indicated that they will take no physical actions or anything like that against Mugabe, but he is under house arrest at this time. Now, as far as transition, some people in Zimbabwe think and believe that Mugabe was grooming his wife to replace him. Now, eventually, Mugabe was going to pass on. He was going to die. He's well up into age now, in his 90s, as I indicated. And some people don't like Mugabe's wife. And some of those people are people within the military, some of the veterans. They don't like her. And they have apparently made that very clear by making a move on Mugabe's position. So, thankfully, so far, there don't seem to be any violence within Zimbabwe. There doesn't seem to be any foreign elements or foreign hand involved with this, at least at this time. So we should not, and I'm certainly not going to make more of this than it really is. But Robert Mugabe has been removed from power. Now it remains to be seen who will replace him. Will it be the vice president that he recently got rid of, and that vice president fled the country? Some think it will be, but I cannot say that would be the case. I don't know. I have no clue as to who. But it won't be his wife. And that was exactly why some are indicating that this coup d'etat occurred in Zimbabwe. Now, You've had sanctions against Zimbabwe for a very long time because the British lied, and they had promised to carry out what was called the Lancaster Agreement, which was the redistribution of land in Zimbabwe, where the over 40% of the land was owned by pale-skinned people in Zimbabwe. So Zimbabwe waited and waited, and then more than 10 years they waited, and Britain never did fulfill that promise. You know, the British are notorious liars anyway. Historically, that's the case with the British generally. So Robert Mugabe and the army, those soldiers that he grew up with, who carried out the revolution against when it was Rhodesia, they then carried out what the Lancaster Agreement had promised. They redistributed the land, the farmland. Many of those veteran soldiers, they attained farmland. And then came the sanctions, where the United States and many of the European countries, they applied sanctions against Zimbabwe, trying to choke and starve out Zimbabwe. So when you talk about Zimbabwe's economy, if had it not been for China, Zimbabwe would have been far worse off. But China came in and helped out in that situation. So, but the pale-skinned nations of Europe and the United States, they were pissed off about all of that. So they were out to get Mugabe. Now, I'm not saying that this relates to this whole coup d'etat. I don't think it does. But the Trump administration has indicated that and encouraged the military to follow the proper procedures, politically, because this is a coup. And I'm sure Donald Trump is very cognizant of the reality that it is a possibility that the same thing can happen here in the United States, where the men with guns take over. So you have that sort of situation happening in Zimbabwe right now. But as I said, I'll say it again, it appears that it is so far bloodless. And I hope it remains that way. So, Zimbabwe has lots of strategic metals. Platinum is one of them. So, but I will have more to say about this at a later time. So, peace to Zimbabwe. T West with Afro Synergy.